Hello, this is the Provoked Prawn with another behind the scenes look at how I capture my footage. This is the third in a series of videos that I'm doing behind the scenes look at how I capture footage. The thought process as I go through the gear that I use and other things. And while I'm talking about gear, I'll link in the description to a new Amazon page that I've set up specifically with all the different equipment that I use. So it includes the camera, the microphones, the other cameras, this wireless microphone that I'm now using to improve the audio for this talking head sort of style of video. So I bought that the other day and I've upgraded, and a few other bits. It doesn't include everything. It doesn't include the lights, for example, because they're cheap, newer ones that aren't fantastic. But one of the things I want to talk to you about tonight is another upgrade idea that I had while considering how to change this. So I showed you previously this sort of boom arm setup that I've got over here, which is basically a cheap boom arm with a special adapter on it that allows you to put cameras on. Really, it's intended for use with smartphone cameras, and it's not really intended for DSLRs and heavy cameras, and so it's not very stable. And I showed previously about how some of the shots are a bit shaky and a bit not great, and I have to do some video stabilization within the software, and that often doesn't work terribly well, and so it comes out looking a bit choppy. Now, I was watching some other videos and doing some research on other alternatives. There are a number of different things that you can do. You could have truss mounts on the ceiling, you could ceiling mount some, or wall mount some camera mounts. They get expensive and messy. Obviously, I've got to think about where I'm capturing footage and whether it's going to show and stuff like that. So they are long-term plans, but I've actually discovered something pretty interesting recently. So these here, which I'll give close-up B-roll shots of in a minute, are essentially adapters. Now these are tiny little adapters that cost about £5, which is about $7 to $10. You could probably get cheaper ones. And what they are is actually allow you to adapt a proper boom arm in order to attach a camera to it. So I've been using the Blue Compass boom arm for a long time, and that is my go-to boom arm for recording audio and using mics on. I've used a number of mics on it, from Blue Yeti to Yeti Nano to the Shure SM7B, HyperX Quadcast, or the Samsung G Pro, all sorts of different microphones over the last few years, and it is my go-to boom arm because it's solid and well built. But I do get a lot of questions about other boom arms that I'd recommend, and to be honest, other than this cheap one behind me and another cheap one that I bought off Amazon a long time ago, I haven't had that much experience. However, the other one that a lot of people recommend is the Rode PSA 1. So it struck me that I could do two things with this, which I've just purchased off Amazon, and it is relatively affordable. It's a bit cheaper than the Compass, and I think on paper it doesn't look quite as good. It doesn't look as sturdy, but people have asked me what this is like versus the Compass, so I thought this might make a good opportunity to do a versus video on this. But actually that isn't the main goal of this behind the scenes, or even my plans for this. What I'm going to do is use that adapter to replace this rubbish boom arm with a more expensive, hopefully more premium one, to get a better quality. Then I'm also going to do another video to compare this with the Compass, and also see how that gets on with mics, because I've got a number of mics to test out at the moment, so it'd be good to see, get them side by side and be able to compare them close to my mouth, but also just to test them out. So I've actually got multiple video ideas that have spawned from one single one, and that idea was basically how to upgrade this camera behind me to improve the quality of that capture. And I then come up with the idea that I could actually possibly create 3 bits of content out of that, and that's one of the other insights into how I work and how I operate. So in terms of coming up with video ideas, sometimes I look at search traffic, what people are looking for in terms of what they're searching for regarding products. So if I have a mouse in, for example, I might look to see what other mice people are looking for in comparison to that. So I've done a number of versus videos on that sort of thing. Other times I do it based on gut feeling. So if I get a headset in and I think this is very similar to this other headset that I've tried, it would make sense to do a video to compare those two. That's how those come about. And sometimes it's search and sometimes it's that. I'm going to do another behind the scenes video in the near future on how I use different tools to work out what people are searching for, because I think that might be useful if you're thinking about doing this sort of thing yourself as well. And that might help you out and hopefully give you a leg up in that. Not that I want more competition, but I figure it's interesting behind the scenes look as well, so something worth knowing about, hopefully. And then the other one is just coming up with random ideas that I think are going to be useful to me and interesting. Obviously basing some videos off questions. So as I said, people have asked about the compass and what that's like versus the Rode. And now I get to try that out and give my experience on it. But also, you know, there are a lot of videos out there probably already. I haven't looked, but I bet if you search for compass versus Rode PSA 1, you'll probably find loads of them already. But I doubt very many people have done a how to use a PSA 1 as a camera mount for multi-camera capture options. So that'll probably give me the edge on that, and that'll be something interesting to talk about. And this should be hopefully an interesting behind the scenes. So what I'm going to do is capture some footage of obviously the PSA coming out of the box. So I could do an unboxing of that, so that's one video. And then take this down and construct it into something else, which is the second video. And then obviously there's a third video in the comparison with the Blue Compass. And so there's a load of potential video from one product. Now I paid £80 for this, which is probably nearly $100. And now I get to potentially make 3 or 4 videos out of it, and we'll see whether they generate the revenue to pay for it. But actually that's not the point necessarily. Sometimes I just create content because I like it and I think it'll be interesting, and I'm going to find it interesting. The experience of setting it up and seeing how it outperforms this, because I'm pretty sure it will be better than this, because this is very wobbly and it was very cheap. It does do a reasonably good job, and I wonder whether this actually gets into more positions than the Rode will, but we'll see how that goes. And obviously I can always go back to it if necessary. So let's get on with it. Now the next stage of this unboxing and setup is actually going to be reading instructions, because this caution spring-loaded thing could potentially be a problem. I'm not actually going to take this off right now because I know how aggressive some boom arms can be, so I'm going to work out how you install it first, which I assume is this bit plugs into the base once it's installed on the desk, but we'll see how that goes. But already heavier and sturdier, and takes up to 2 kilograms in weight apparently, so we'll see how that goes. One of the things you might notice from this clip about this cheap boom arm is actually quite cool, because it comes with this ball head attached to it. Now, as I said, this isn't really designed for cameras, so it's not very stable, but what it does do is it allows you to get into all sorts of positions. So all it takes is a twist of that, and now you can adjust in all sorts of different directions. You can also adjust this bit at the base so you can move in a multitude of directions. So this is cheap, but it is actually a good alternative, because most boom arms won't come with this sort of ball head attachment on them. It'd just be a straight connector. So if it was just for a microphone, for example, it would probably look like that, which is basically what the Rode does, exactly the same sort of logic. You just have a small attachment and a washer that allows you to tighten the things up. And then yes, you could put the camera on there and you can still get in a couple of angles, but you don't have as much flexibility. So this little ball head is actually very useful. And luckily I have something similar, which hopefully will fit on the Rode when I finish, but a more advanced version, so we'll get to that in a second. So what you might have noticed there is the PSA 1 is quite springy, at least as standard, and this is quite different from the blue compass, although I do remember having the same problem when I set it up. What I did was initially is I need to test this and also go through the thought process of how to do it. So I just attached the Blue Yeti to it to see how it would handle that, and it still sprung up unless you put it into certain positions. And in doing so, I also used the little adapter, which I'm also going to need to use for my camera. So I'm thinking about what I need to do in terms of getting shots of that and showing that one. I also noticed there's a screw hole on this side on each point, so you probably can tighten this up so it doesn't spring around as much, which is good in a way, but I'm also going to need to put the camera on there first to see how much it weighs it down. So I probably don't want to tighten it up too much, then put the camera on and can't move it, or the opposite, where it's like, because I don't want it doing this. You certainly don't want to put the camera in a position and it goes like that, because that's obviously not ideal. I don't want my camera flying across the room, and it wouldn't be a very smooth shot. So my initial impressions are it's not good because you can't easily tighten it. I'm going to need to use a screwdriver, which is going to be a pain. So actually the compass would be definitely better because it has much easier adjustment. To quickly demonstrate that, this is obviously the compass, and the adjustment of it is much easier. Just put it into a position and it stays there. There is a bit of wobble in it, admittedly. So I don't know, maybe it would have the same problem. But there are simple tightening notches on here that you can use in a screw-like fashion, but without having to use a screwdriver. So maybe compass might be superior for what I'm trying to achieve, but we'll see how we get on. This is the adapter that I was talking about. So on one side it's a big thick thing that will fit on the thread of a standard microphone mount, which I'll show in a minute. It does work because I've already tested it. And then the other side is the fitment that will work on the camera. So on the standard thread for the camera, it will just screw into the bottom. So that little adapter will then convert a microphone boom arm into a camera boom arm, so that should be interesting. So it turns out this might actually work as it is, because it isn't actually bouncing up, and you can put it in any of the positions. I've literally not adjusted anything. So it's actually well balanced, and it can put it into a number of places quite easily. So here we have Manfrotto's 494 ball head, which is essentially a fancy ball head that you can attach, and then it has a camera mount on it. So what I'm going to do is try and put that on there, and that should hopefully give a bit more flexibility in the setup. Of course, because this is the... So what I've now done is realised that I'm an idiot and I didn't actually need this adapter. So this adapter will obviously convert the microphone into a camera boom arm, but if I'm using this, I actually use a thread from the standard boom arm mic mount that attaches to the ball head, and then a quick release plate on that connects to the camera. So actually I just wasted £5. But if you weren't going to use a ball head and you just want a standard mount and you're going to put the camera in a certain position and keep it there, then it still might be useful. So I'm going to leave links in the description when I do that video, and maybe in this one if people are interested. And obviously the gold thread comes with the PSA, so that is included in the box, and that allows you to usually to adapt to bigger microphones, as you've seen with the Blue Yeti that I showed earlier on. But now you can see even without the camera it sort of stays and it doesn't spring up quite as far. We'll see how it gets on with the camera, but even with just the camera on a second ago it was working fine. So actually this should be the ideal setup, because now I've got a much nicer ball head, which is a lot easier to adjust and a lot more stable, and in theory a better quality arm as well, so it should in the end hopefully lead to a lot better footage. So there we go, it's worked out actually almost perfect. I didn't have to do any adjustment on the arm at all. You can see, yes, there is some wobble still, which is obviously not ideal because it's not really designed for this task, so some sort of shock absorption would be nice. Unfortunately, there's not much I can do about that, but it's not as bad as it was on the old one, and I think it's better at taking a lot more weight. But you can see there's still a bit of camera shake, so this is not the perfect solution. It's not going to be 100% perfect, but it is a bit better. I do wonder whether the Blue Compass might be a bit more stable, just because the base isn't quite as thin. It's got quite a thin connection when it connects to the base. The base itself is quite sturdy, but however, I am pleased that I don't have to adjust it, although maybe if I tightened it up a bit it wouldn't be quite as wobbly. It's hard to say. And the addition of the ball head on here obviously makes it very flexible, because you can adjust it in all sorts of positions. So just with a quick twist of this knob I can suddenly get it up here, or I can put it down, or you can go sideways, and you can basically do loads of things. And the fact that it just goes out in multiple directions with ease in a couple of seconds means that I can put it into a variety of positions and capture loads of different footage, and that's really important to me to deliver the best possible results and to account for all the different size of things that I'm going to have. And so yeah, pretty pleased with that. So now on to the next one, and hopefully that'll be a pretty easy video to put together as well, because it's a pretty easy setup. The only drawback was I found I'd purchased something that wasn't really necessary, although if I hadn't got this ball head then it would have been, and I'd forgotten actually that I had this, to be honest. And I think probably the ball head makes a bit of a difference. This might end up being a bit too heavy maybe, but as you can see it's coping, but any sort of knocks to the desk are probably going to get picked up quite easily, so I'm going to need to be careful. So this is again a short-term solution. I'm going to have to consider some sort of ceiling mount in the future, I think. Probably get it off the desk and out of the way. But I now have the bonus of being able to do multiple videos on the PSA 1, so hopefully that content will come out as useful in the future. Thanks for watching. Let me know in the comments if you've got any questions, or if you'd like to see anything else specific. Also, if you've watched this far, please do me a favour and check out my new gaming channel, which is exclusively just gameplay clips. The Provoked Prawn Pews is what I've called it. I've decided to move all the content that is game related, or at least future gameplay related clips, will be on that channel rather than this one, because I feel like YouTube's punishing me a bit for having too much variety on my channel. So I would really appreciate it if you wouldn't mind subscribing over there if you're interested in the hilarity that comes from the Provoked Prawn playing games with his pals at the weekend. So I really appreciate that. Hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching. This has been the Provoked Prawn. Thanks for taking the time to watch this video. Hope you found it useful, interesting, hilarious, or all of the above. Be sure to check out the description for other information you might find interesting, and subscribe and watch these other videos as well that I think might be useful to you, and have a great life.